people were looking at why imagine strength? Well, that's a really good question because we didn't start the end of this to build a line of equipment. The problem is I want to make sure that what we produce first is bulletproof. It needs to be just like all the other good manufacturers out there that were, and we all know them. It has to have that feel like it's going to last forever. I want to be able to provide equipment that actually is innovative, that addresses a number of conditions around joint issues and strength and weak people, strong people, frail, those conditions. And nobody was really doing anything innovative anymore. They were going into hit. We had gone away from hit training. And let me tell you, it hasn't been an easy path. My wife is like ready to kill me half the time because amount of what we've done to make this happen.
Lawrence Sneal here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, your one-stop shop for elevating your HIIT business and fueling your passion for high intensity training. This is episode 446. Today's guest is the founder of Imagine Strength, Jeff Turner. And we've had lots of questions following the recent podcasts and content that we published on Imagine Strength. We've obviously published it all over the podcast and YouTube, etc. And what I thought I'd do is collaborate with Jeff again to answer as many questions as possible. I also emailed the audience, you guys, yesterday to give even more questions. So we've got loads of questions, which is great. I will say, I think many of the questions have actually been answered on the content we've already put out. So if you go to the show notes for episode 446 on highintensitybusiness.com, we will link to all of that content, and all of that content should be timestamped. So that means that you can literally find exactly what you're looking for in a lot of cases. If you're not on the email list or our email list and you would like to be when I poll for questions, just go to highintensitybusiness.com/contact and just communicate with me there, and I'll make sure I add it to the list for future emails like this. All right. So Jeff, great to see you. Thanks for doing this. Loving the setup today. Love the Imagine Strength jacket. You are ready to go.
Yeah.
So let's
say it's cold.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Fair enough. So I've got a whole lot of questions here. I'm excited. As I said to you, we're going to be covering some old ground probably with some of these, but it's all good. So first question is a UK question. So it's from a UK studio owner, and he was curious about what would it cost currently to ship one machine to the UK, two machines, or three machines, roughly, approximately.
We haven't crossed that bridge yet, so I'm not really sure. I'd have to get a quote. But typically, it's very difficult, unfortunately, until we get a distributor over there, which we're working on. And so we're currently kind of looking at that. We need to get somebody over there to open that territory up because we can't ship three at a time because we have to ship containers. So our container cost still is very, very high. So we fill a container with about 28 to 30 pieces. And then that makes it viable. Then that's why even in the States, what we're looking at is some of our people wait 3 or 4 months, 2 to 3 months, 10 to 12 weeks. So we can fill a container up and get it over. And they're okay with that as long as you got to be transparent. You want to be transparent with all this.
100%.
And that's where we're at. We're working on UK. That's one of the territories we really want to open up. I just opened up in Australia. We now have a distributor in Australia, Tony Markham, and they're going to do some wonderful things this next year. So it's very, very exciting in a sense because I can't believe Jeff Turner in Little Town Olympia now is, trying to sell worldwide. It's a very interesting place to be, but we're working on that. So I can't really give a definitive answer for just one or three pieces. So ultimately, it becomes very expensive to try to do that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the honest update on that. And that's fascinating with regard to the distributor setup in Australia. I know quite a few people in Australia who are in the HIIT business or are looking to get into it. I would say quite a lot of people who contact me who are kind of in some more kind of, white collar professional job where they've accumulated a lot of resources and are now looking to start some kind of HIIT studio, maybe it's something they're passionate about. Do you see a lot of that? I'm curious what your take is on the HIIT growth in Australia.
Well, it's very interesting. We've had that conversation multiple times. In fact, I just got off the phone last night with Tony. We had a conversation for about a half hour, and they're doing the groundwork to create hit businesses and franchises. So they're very much involved with also helping them grow their businesses, not just sell them equipment. Because right now they're in the infancy over there as far as HIT. It's coming and people are understanding it more, which is going to be the wave of the future anyway. So anybody's watching this, you're right. You're very right in the fact that we have to become more clinically driven on our exercise. I'm going to be 64 years old. I'm stronger than I ever have been, but those people coming in my door are like me, but they're weak. You cannot be frail and strong. So this is where we're going to go, but people don't want to go to big clubs necessarily because they don't know what to do. So you guys are right. Start your business, but do it, based on the market and what you're looking at. But that's what's happening over in Australia. They're starting to develop that now. And so, it's a growing concern over there.
And I would think, again, this is me just being really ignorant and asking a silly question, but shipping from China to Australia is obviously, I'm assuming, less expensive than most places due to distance.
It's less expensive. And the cool thing with them is they actually have their own borders. So they can pick it up right from the factory themselves. So
wow.
They can control that even more.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. All right. So moving on. What is the minimum number of machines for an order? And what is the current turnaround time? I know that's probably quite nuanced, but can you speak on that?
Depending on the time of the year, of course, with Christmas and everything else involved. But typically about 8 to 10 weeks is what we could turn around. And right now, if we're getting a few orders at a time, and we can do this right now, typically we can go to as low as one. We don't have any minimum order.
Okay, it's just that buyer has to obviously wait for the container to fill for efficiency, essentially. So that's,
let's say we got a guy over in South Carolina that's buying 2 pieces, a low back and a leg press, and those 2 pieces we'll get him here in January. But we ordered him about 2 months ago. He wanted to get him going. I said, well, it's going to take about 90 days or so. And he was okay with that. As long as everybody's upfront and telling the truth about everything, I would never pull the wool over somebody's eyes and say, oh, we'll get it to you in 6 weeks and then just take their money. Then make them wait. I make sure they understand that, we're working on that, and I keep them updated.
It is a very, very good point. Just being really upfront with lead times is key. You're giving me horror-like flashbacks from my time in technology sales, Jeff, when I would sell internet connectivity to businesses, like big networks. And quite a few times I got it wrong in terms of lead times, and it caused a lot of problems. And thank God I'm not in that game anymore.
It can damage who you are and your brand. They may like your equipment, but if you don't do your service, one of the things we've done, we call it, of course, white glove service, whatever. We stand behind what we do. When you first come out, MedX and everybody will tell you this, and I work for Nautilus, the same thing. Boy, our 2SC version, when it came out, which was a very good version of Nautilus back in 1995, 96, we had some major issues with our side weight stacks, and almost everyone I had to go out and replace and fix them on and on. It took us about a year and a half to get things filtered out. Well, same thing with us. As we brought on our production models, you called version A, then version B, we had things we had to go back and fix. And that was one of the things tonight about Jeff at Max Strength, especially at Jeff at Max Strength. I mean, we did a lot of prototyping through him and the things that we were able to do. So coming through that now we're ready to roll. In fact, we've got 4 new pieces. I just came back from the factory, and we'll talk about it real quick, but 4 new pieces are coming out: a tricep, a seated dip, which I really love, a rotary torso, and our bicep. And the bicep, we spent, I took my own engineer over there. We spent a lot of time on that bicep. It's very, very good. And it's got the adaptive drive in it. So it actually follows the bone as you come across. That's one of the main problems with most biceps. This doesn't stay in one place. The axis rotation changes. Well, so does our machine. Like our knee machines, it follows. It becomes much safer on that structure of that joint.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jeff. And just for completeness, and so we can link it up, Jeff's referring to Jeff Tomaszewski over at Max Strength Fitness. So make sure he's linked up.
Max Strength.
Great guy. Yeah.
A great partner to work with, especially with the prototyping. They're a great group. And so is Discover. I'm not taking anything from anybody, but Jeff, we've worked a lot with to make sure that what we're using and what we're building is being used in the club correctly and what we need to have. But it takes a little bit of time. That's what I was getting with the prototyping. You massage these things out. You keep making them better. In fact, again, and you and I had talked a little bit. I just got back. We now have improved we've got a brand new, we're going to bringing in our new stack. We're improving our equipment as we go along. We're not just sitting idle and saying, oh, we're done. This is good. No, we want to continue to improve and make changes as we go along to make the equipment better and better and better, not just, try to sell equipment and make money.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. So
I use it every day in my own studios.
So let me just think about this question a bit more. So there isn't a minimum number. It's just obviously can vary in terms of time scale.
Sorry,
go ahead.
but if somebody wanted to get it, like right now,
Sure.
Literally we'd have to about 20 pieces, 15 to 20 pieces to get where we get to order a container and get it over here within 8 weeks or less. We can literally turn around the equipment in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and have it built and ready to ship.
And we're mostly talking about US here, aren't we? With regard to this example. With Europe, it's very difficult until you get a distributor effectively.
Until we really get a distributor network over there where they can and we don't want to do that either because we want to be able to service our client. How do I service them from the United States? I can't give you good service if I'm not over there.
Yeah, got it. Makes a lot of sense.
That's a huge part to this. Is it doggone service?
So. Yeah, no, absolutely. Getting the parts, maintenance, etc. And so next question is how much square feet of space is needed for a 10 machine circuit of, for example, the whole list is here, a lower back, leg press, abdominal, rotary torso, pull over, pull down, row, chest press, shoulder press, neck machine. Roughly how much square feet is required, do you think, for that?
Well, and I don't know how much of this you can see, but this room in here is about 800 square feet or less. And I have 13 pieces in this room. So if you want, depending how much you like to play Tetris, you can literally get, 10 pieces at 600 square feet and make it work pretty well.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Depending on on how you set it up, but I would suggest you want a little more room than I always look for 800 to 1,000 square feet. And then here's the key. This is that long-term look. You're going to want to add a piece here or there because it brings excitement back to the club. So you don't want to make it so narrow that you can never add to it. Now, you may want to grow and add to your square footage later, but I look for being able to add a couple pieces over the next couple of years because it brings excitement back to the club.
Yeah, good point. Great stuff. And you mentioned the new pieces. Did you mention, so the question is, are you coming out of a seated dip and or an assisted chin dip machine?
Yeah, we've got a seated dip, which I can tell you a little bit about it. And we made a couple of changes over there, but this is going to sound like puffery and I don't mean it to, but it's the best thing I've ever been on as far as the seated dip. So we have a seat back.
No praise like self-praise, Jeff.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like but I don't mean it to be puffery at all because it's very unique in the fact that we have a seat back pad that has almost a vertical start, but 5 positions forward. If you've ever been on a dip, you're leaning into it all the time, right? Well, this gives you a very good extreme stability with a seat belt. But not only does it do that, but it's also in a 4-bar linkage, so it raises up at that same angle, depending on the height or the length of that back or the person. So there's 3 adjustments on that to be able to fit anybody on this piece. And if that person's uncomfortable with leaning forward, you lean it back. Anyway, it's a very good piece. And it's just, it feels good to me because I hurt doing some other chest press. I can do that dip. I love that piece. It's a great piece.
Awesome.
But we don't have a chin and dip yet.
Go ahead.
We're looking at that, but that'll probably be later only because that right now, as far as we want to make sure we hit the major joint, pieces and have multiple presses and things that from a seated position, because in what we're working on, the chin and dip is more of a more advanced kind of person getting on that, So when we have a 75-year-old woman coming in that's never trained before, that's last on our list, right? So we want to get to those ones we're going to use more often, and so they can produce more revenue for somebody, in a club.
Yeah, I totally understand how you prioritize that. It makes a lot of sense. What about? So is there any chance that you would do? I'm kind of going through rapid fire now, Jeff. Any chance you do plate loaded version of your stuff?
It's interesting you say that. That we have talked about that. So we're looking at some of that. But the problem is I want to make sure that what we produce first is bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
Bulletproof. It needs to be just like all the other good manufacturers out there that were, and we all know them. But, you look at Nautilus and MedX. You buy a piece of equipment from them, and they're dang good manufacturers, especially the older Nautilus, because I worked for that company. they will last 20, 30 years. You can build a return on investment. It's so good on your equipment if it lasts. So my mission is to make sure that what we're building is correct first and foremost. That's why we upgraded some of the things when I was over there. We're spending more money on our equipment now than we ever have. I mean, we're not making it cheaper. We're making it more expensive for myself because it has to be that way. It has to have that feel like it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
So that is when we go into a plate loaded version, which we'd like to do it. It'll probably be down the road a little bit. We have looked at it.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Just on that, I know it's quite a lot of these questions here. Like, are you going to come out with this piece? Are you going to do this style of machine? It's like, it must be quite hard in your business because obviously more products means more complexity. It can get quite overwhelming. There's something to be said in business in general in terms of just simplifying and maybe just focusing on the machines that are actually the most popular and that people really want. How do you strike that balance when you're growing?
It's really interesting that you bring that up because when I worked for Nautilus, we had 33 pieces in our next generation line. And it was like, wow, why would we need that? Now that I've been doing this, I understand what they did. They just kept adding to it because people wanted this or wanted that. So that's like, we're going to be doing a seated cap and a rotary shoulder next. Because I really believe that shoulders need to be addressed for people coming in the door. So, you guys as owners need to be able to have a machine that's going to help, in and out of rotation, those kind of things. So it helps with the revenue streams. But yeah, you're right. When I first had the first 3 pieces built, I had the chest press, the leg press, and the row. I was like ecstatic. I'm going to look at that. We have 3 pieces, looking at this. But then you go, uh-oh, and then you have to fill it out. I mean, we could have stopped at 14. Mm-hmm. And had a pretty good line and sold it that way. But our mission now is to be able to slowly, fill out the line more. We have 20 pieces right now that are pretty much ready to go. And from that, you can build multiple different types of and various workouts around either conditions of joints or whatever it is that somebody wants. So it has been hard we have to pull back. Once we get to this rotary shoulder, we're going to pull back and hold off for a bit. And then, we got to work on the logistics. We got to work on warehousing. We got to work on things that matter to you guys from the standpoint of, sales, being able to buy them and get them when you want them, that kind of thing. So we got to work on some of that too and put more money into that.
All right, Jeff. So some technical questions here on the machines. Does the compound row have an option for independent motion on the movement arms? It looks like there's an unlock option. So I think this person's seen in the video and is just asking about that. Yeah.
Yes, it does. In fact, it's the only machine we do have that option on is the seated row. We took it out of the torso arm. I'm not a big proponent of doing separate movements, twisting. You tend to twist the spine one way or the other, those kind of things. And I was very much driven by Ken Hutchins and the people that were my mentors. So when I'm looking at that, we made some decisions around that, but we left it in the row. One is I didn't want to go back and read it where we designed it up. We had it in there. I didn't want to go back and change that. That was a whole other cost. But 2, some people want it. Some people like it that way. So we left it in. But yes, that's the only machine that we have basically a dual poly movement.
Very good. All right. Again, another one. I know this has definitely been addressed on previous content, but it's all good. So this person said, how would a 700-pound leg press on MedX? They say 700. I thought the original MedX was 1,000 pounds.
It is.
Oh, no, it's not. Or is it? It was close to.
The MedX has 2 500-pound stacks.
Yeah, so I'm not sure 700. I mean, I don't know where that's come from, but maybe that's a different type. So they've said, how would a 700-pound leg press on MedX, 10-10 movement speed, convert to the Imagine Strength leg press? Would the 500-pound weight stack, which I believe is the Imagine leg press, right, be sufficient? And if so, can you explain that again for us?
Well, it's sufficient to 99 or 98% of your clients. Those that are very strong, like for example, I can stack my machine. You bet your life, but I can also put myself in positions where I can't. So you've got to, as you get very, very strong, I can stack the MedX one. And the MedX one travels at less than 12 inches. So your stroke length is less than 12 inches, which allows.
That's because you got short legs though, right, Jeff?
Yeah,
so you got an advantage. You got
short legs.
Leverage, right? Advantage.
That definitely makes a difference. You're right. I don't have legs like you. No, they're not long.
That's the only reason I can't stack it. That's it.
Yeah. But that said is ours travels at 18 inches. So when you have a stroke length that's half again longer, Ours is almost a 1-to-1. So we're actually lifting close to 500 pounds, but it's still, you have a leverage advantage in a leg press. You just do. For us to make it so that the strongest people can't lift that, we'd have to have 1,000-pound stack. And you just can't do it. So we're looking at ways to try to make that heavier. But the most important thing to do is you plan your workouts around whether you abduction, leg curl, or abduction, leg extension onto a leg press. You do a little pre-exhaust, you get on that machine, there's plenty of weight. The nice thing about it, though, is it has very proper movement. Driven from the heels, it's a very linear stroke. And when you do that, there's not an arc to it. So we're not involving the low back much and all that in the way that the seat is set up. So it's a very, very safe exercise to get a deep involvement.
Yeah, and I would just say from experience, I did the Imagine leg press first when we were at Rec in this year, actually. And so I did it fresh, and I'm probably significantly stronger than most people's clients, especially newbies. And so I wouldn't be concerned about this. I really think you're right. This is a problem on the margins. And like you say, it's like you say, a lot of people can max out the MedX. And similar.
Exactly. Clay Steppe, and Bob Sikora from MedX, they get odd people all the time because people want to lock their knees out or come close to it.
Right.
The closer you get to that position of infinite lever, which is right there, when you start to do this and bend that knee, you need to stop at about 15 degrees. It's not comfortable. Exercise isn't fun. It's just not. But if you do that, you will have a hard time pacing that stack for quite a while if you do it correctly.
Does remind me, because it's been a while now. Do you have, is there full hip rotation in the Imagine leg press? Like, does it go out and down? I forget. Remind me.
It starts here, but collapses. So if you start like this, it collapses down. So yes, it goes straight down toward the floor. Yeah. So you get
that makes it so much harder because, and I know because I had a real hard time on that machine as my initial machine. I loved it, but it was brutal. I also was quite hungover, so that didn't help. But with regard to, I'm just thinking, like, again, I have more experience obviously using the MedX leg press, and when you pin it, when you gap it right, such that you can't lock out and you move the seat forward, obviously relative to your height, etc., so that you can push it all the way down as intended. I have to chop the weight in half in order to actually perform sufficient repetitions. Like it changes the exercise completely. It's very difficult. And you're also, just to add to what you said there, isn't there? You've made there's other adjustments, modifications, or design elements, I should say, to make it more difficult in terms of less travel time on the weight stack as well. Is that a factor?
This has an 18-inch stroke, so it actually increases the resistance.
Sorry. More.
So it's a longer stroke, but that we tried to do with all the pieces, because one of the complaints we've always heard is that weight stacks were too light. Well, you're going to have a very difficult time stacking our torso arm, our row, or our chest press, even our lat raise in the pieces, because we want to make them heavy. But on the other side of the coin, we also have to make it that the starting level of resistance is low enough for the weakest individual. So some of the times you're going to have to pin the stack out a little bit and get them started with a shorter range of motion. And as they get stronger, you lengthen the stroke as the client gets stronger. So now are you increasing the resistance, you're increasing the stroke length. And you got to kind of play with that, because we got to have a model that works for everybody.
Yeah.
So you're exactly correct. We made choices that way, and you learn to use them. And over the last 18 months, I've had my equipment. It works extremely well that way. Now I have a 93-year-old using my chest press here with 36 pounds. That's all she can use, but she's come up about 12 pounds on it. You know what I mean? So you can work almost anybody out on the equipment and fit the need. And that's the idea.
Yeah. Perfect. Great stuff. All right. So go ahead.
Sorry, just to go back to the leg press, you can also lay the seat almost completely down. And
do like a squat.
Get into almost a full squat position. Yeah. I mean, if you really want to make it hard, you can make it hard. And with the shoulder pads, and the curve for the spine, you're in a very safe position, but you can definitely work around the hip and get very deep into it.
Beautiful. So, question here. Hang on, I forgot to ask. Is there how do you keep? Okay, so how is it? Can you just explain the mechanism to manage the strength curve throughout the range of motion? How that's different to a cam, or similar to a cam, or not?
On which machine?
Are they all different? Imagine this is where I'm really quite
Yeah.
ignorant when it comes to these machines. Yeah.
With a couple of the machines, your strength curve is built through the actual movement, the 4-bar linkage and where it travels, the long links and different things like that. Of course, that's Clay Steffi's realm, better than mine. As genius as he is, he's very good at that. So, like for example, our overhead press right here, it's basically just got a straight line. The resistance is what it is. We are not changing it because you cannot increase the resistance hard enough to a position of infinite levering. You're starting to get into a joint. You're starting to then put pressure on a joint and soft tissue. So we got to be very careful not to we can certainly do that, make it too heavy at the top, but you don't want to do that. You start to impact joints. So most of ours have strength curves. Like for example, our rotary machines are going to have cams. Most of them have cams. So for example, our leg extension has a 3-to-1, a little over 3-to-1 fall off. Same with the leg curl. It's because you're very, very weak in the rotated position. So it has to match that and a certain speed of movement. So we're looking at 4 to 5 seconds up, 4 to 5 seconds down. If you want to go extreme 10-10, you can certainly do that, but it's not quite a designed cam for a 10-10 movement. But you can certainly, we do some of that ourselves, but a couple of them are. Our pullover, you could certainly do a 10-10 or even a 12-10 or something like that because our pullover machine has such a long stroke.
Right.
Long stroke, right? And it has over a 3-to-1 fall off. So when you come down to that bottom, you can tighten those abs and drive those elbows way back. I mean, you're getting some good full rotation around that back. But you can actually travel different speeds on that a little bit. But yeah, you're right. The cams are on most of the machines, but like the leg press, the chest press, and any of the pressing movements are basically a linear curve. It sounds funny, linear curve, but it's a straight line resistance. The pull down the row have built-in fall offs into the 4-bar linkage. So our row has about a 2.5-to-1 fall off, 2-to-1 fall off or so, which is a little bit greater than some of the other pieces that are out there that people buy.
Okay. And just you mentioned there about how it might not be optimal for 10-10 movement speed. I guess that's a small concern for some people because some people might utilize, protocols that are even greater than that, right? Like a 30-30-30 protocol or something similar. Yeah. So how do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel these machines will fare with those movement speeds? Yeah,
we do a 5, what we call 5-15, 5 seconds up, 15 down, those kind of things. We do a 30-30-30. They're all easy. It's just that's based on the load, the resistance itself, not so much the stroke, or the machine or the cam. Especially on a 30-30-30, because you're actually taking the load and increasing the time under load, throughout the rep. So you're already doing about 1.5 reps.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
You're not moving that weight stack very, very much.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. All right. Would you ever consider making 2-station machines, such as like a leg extension, leg curl in one machine, or seated press, lat pull down? I think they meant seated row, did they? I'm not sure. I think chest press, seated row. Oh, sorry, no. Yeah, that was right. And then chest press, seated row combo. So these like double machines.
Yeah. Right now we haven't had any designs on that. We were looking, of course, at doing a combo adduction combo.
Oh yeah.
But there's always giveaways. If you look at those pieces versus the separate pieces, it's one reason why you never saw like MedX really do one, because you have it completely different strength curves when you do it. So you have to have and the rotation is far enough depending on it that you may not be able to use one cam. So you have to have separate cams on it. So it becomes a very expensive machine to design. And there's also a problem with me is we have 4 or 5 people training it, or 3 to 4 people training at a time, 3 people anyway, at times. And you don't want to have somebody on a machine twice. You need to get them off. Move on. So for expediting people through an 8-piece circuit or training program, it depends on how you run your business. If some people, they do one-on-one, they only do one every 30 minutes or whatever, then that's not a problem. So yeah, but I'm not really, pardon me, but I'm just not a big fan of combos because you usually have giveaways as far as the actual machine itself and how it feels.
Yeah, I get it. What you're saying, there's logic to it. I appreciate your perspective on that. The China question, Jeff. So this definitely has been addressed in some more other content, so I will refer to that probably even more on this. But here's the question. I'd like to hear about a decision to have these machines made in China. Obviously, an economical decision, but it seems to be a poor decision for image and assurances of long-term stability. there's a lot, I guess you see this a lot, don't you, in the States, that people want American made in a lot of different categories, right? I'm not talking about exercise machines, but like other things, but perhaps it applies here as well. Are there any plans to have these machines manufactured in the US where your headquarters are located?
Not right now. There isn't, unless somebody would like to pay double. If somebody's willing to pay $10,000 a machine, we can probably make that happen. But right now, it's just not feasible. We've looked. We went to 3 different manufacturers.
Okay.
Didn't work. Didn't pan out. Couldn't do it. Plus, these guys are people that I've known are actually almost my family over there. You may have a problem with the government itself and how they run, but I don't have a problem with my friends. And they are very, very good to me. They have done, and you can talk to Jeff Tomaszewski about this. They have gone overboard to make sure that we are getting parts, service, things that we have to have done. And that's extremely important when you talk about this. For any line of equipment, you've got to be able to be serviced, just in case. And truthfully, when you look at their manufacturers, we have 120,000 square feet, brand new. We have 11 robotic welders. We have 3 laser cutters. We can do virtually anything we need to have done. And through the prototyping, doing unique and innovative pieces, it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. And that's really the main reason is over there is that we're able to do that. We can make changes within a day. I kid you, we've made changes in a day, 24 hours, and sent parts out within a week to make changes over here. So extremely responsive and understanding. So yeah, I mean, I understand, but people would like that. But it's funny how they try to hold us accountable for something like that, but yet they'll buy T-shirts that are made in multiple. Look at all your clothes and lift up the hood in your car. I can guarantee you right now that car is not built, most of it not built here in the States. It just isn't. Parts are built all over the world and then assembled at a plant possibly in the United States, but most of them are built outside the United States. In fact, every manufacturer that I know of right now, from Life Fitness on, they're outside the country, but yet people are still buying.
Yeah. It's incredible, actually, when you dig into some of these companies, especially these larger companies, how much they rely on subsidiaries all over the world, a lot in Asia for various parts. It's all part of the ecosystem. There's no way some of these companies would be able to survive if they had everything in house. It's just impossible. So
let's say, if they're concerned about, strife between the two countries, well, all your drugs and pills and are made in China. I mean, right now, all the lithium battery material for all your electric cars, China. I mean, so this, they don't take that into consideration because when they go to buy that, but that's the way the global system works. And unfortunately, if something happens, then we'll have to address it as we get there, and we will. But, I have all the designs too. If I ever needed to, I could, literally take them and make it. But these guys are my partners in this too. So understand, these are not just manufacturers. These guys are passionate about what we're doing. So Rose and Peter, they were there at REC. They came over for a couple of days at REC. It was important to them to be there and meet everybody.
I didn't see
this. This is not just a guy, let's just make equipment. That's not who they are.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I literally have a friend who's quite senior with a fitness business here in Ireland who went over with his team to China to look at machines. Obviously, I mentioned Imagine Strength. And he was so impressed by the service over there. And they were in Shanghai and various other places.
Yeah.
And he was so impressed with the service, the way they do business, which is really just echoing what you're saying. And I've worked with, Andre, who is going to edit this show. He's not, he's in the Philippines, slightly different, but just that whole area, like there is a really remarkable work ethic and professionalism and responsiveness there's a big reason why a lot of us, work with organizations over there, people over there.
Well,
and it's not to say they don't exist domestically. Obviously they do, but,
But the elephant in the room, is the fact that if we could afford to do it here, we would have. Even because they would have been partnered, they would open a factory over here and do it here too. I mean, we could have done that, but it's just right now, it's just not feasible. Unfortunately, it's just the way that the labor market and those kind of things are. It would be very, very, very expensive. I figured out it would also be $200,000 per prototype. I'm sorry, $20,000 per prototype.
Okay.
Just to get, and I have 20 pieces. That's $500,000 just to get some prototypes started, and that's not finished.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So
and look, to stillman this individual's question, and look, I'm sure there's more. Yeah, it's a little bit unfair because if we were to have a debate about this, it'd be interesting having them on the call to actually talk about it, productively. And to sort of stillman their position a little bit. I understand if this is part of the argument, and maybe you can speak to this more, Jeff. Is it the kind of emotional, romantic connection to it being manufactured locally, right? As part of the, and then like you said, there's the concern with the political concern with China and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I can understand that, and I can understand people wanting it to be built in the United States. Trust me, I would have loved to have it because it should have been a lot easier for me. I about died. Like we talked before, I about died the last 4 years twice. I worked my buns off to make this work, getting back and forth and doing work over in Ohio, back and forth. This was not an easy thing to do through the pandemic and all this. If it had been here, it'd been a lot easier. But we just couldn't do it. And I'd love to have had it done in the United States, just because I am true blue American too. But I started thinking about, wait a minute, I look at even the clothes I got on right now. This thing was made in Vietnam, I think. And then you get enough of them, you buy, you do your things. But so, yeah, I understand. And it's just one of those things we're going to have to deal with as we go along. But the manufacturing process is very, very good. It's not because it's a lower type of manufacturing growth there. It's because the ability the cost, being able to build a piece of equipment and keep the price down around $5,000. A little bit more for the bigger ones, a little bit less for the smaller ones. So we're trying to keep it affordable for people to open up a studio and get a good return on investment within a year or less.
Got it. And look, I think so. We're going to go time for one more question, really, and then we'll wrap up, Jeff. And we'll certainly organize the rest of the questions we didn't get to another lot for a part 2 on this. But yes. I have got other questions for you. But before I'd like to wrap up on actually a question you get. So what are the top 3 questions that come to mind for you, or top question maybe to make it easier, that you get personally from prospects and customers of your machines? What's that you would like to address in this podcast right now? Anything that comes to mind? If not, I've got others.
Well, I'll just address, basically, people were looking at why imagine strength? What's your objective, And, that's a really good question, because we didn't start the end of this to build a line of equipment. I have 2 studios. I've actually have 4 studios altogether that I work with, and the everyday issues that we run into with different clients. And so we wanted to build, there was nothing coming out about that. I wanted to be able to provide equipment that actually is innovative, that addresses a number of conditions around joint issues and strength, and weak people, strong people, frail, those conditions. And nobody was really doing anything innovative anymore. They were going into hit. We had gone away from hit training. So if you look at Nautilus, I'm sorry, but the Nautilus company is not what it was. And I wish it was, because I worked for that company for 11 years. I had to leave. We lost who we were. And I wanted to bring Arthur Jones back. I want to bring in pure high intensity training. It's not my machine that's going to make your clients better. It's how you use my machine. So from actual pure strength and pure training, whether it's 2-4, 4-4, 10-10, we got to get back to having good tools that don't hurt joints, people can use, but you have to train on them correctly to use them correctly. I wanted to build a line that's safe, simple, and effective. That's it. Safe, simple, and effective. That's who we are. Not overblown pricing and flipping weight stacks, electronic gears, or anything else. Safe, simple, effective, will last for a lifetime.
Yeah. Great stuff. It's quite, what's the word? I don't know what the word is now, but it's quite funny. You should use that as your final answer, because the questions that I was going to go to, if you didn't have anything, were exactly that. So that's,
is that right?
They're right there on the screen. So that's funny.
Again, people wonder why. Let me tell you, it hasn't been an easy path. My wife is like ready to kill me half the time because amount of what we've done to make this happen. But then I look at it and I look around and I go, I walk in my own studio, and I walk in, I kind of, before I turn the lights on, I just kind of stand there and look. I go, you know what? This looks good.
Yeah, it was worth it.
And it works. And we make money off of it every single day. Mm-hmm. And I'm not having to do anything to them. I'm not in here fixing them all the time or something like that. So I look at it, I go, you know what? We did it. We kind of mastered what we wanted to do. You have tools that can be used properly. You can make money with them, and you don't have to have a ton of money involved. You know, you can get into a studio fairly inexpensively. You start with 8 to 10 pieces, and then every year or so you add a piece or two. Pretty soon you've got the studios that you're, one, not passionate for, but you're also making a good living in.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Jeff, so I'm happy where we're at.
Yeah, me too. Good for you. And excited obviously to see the continuing developments. I think you guys have already made such amazing progress and are delivering so much value to the HIIT industry, and it's awesome to see.
Appreciate that.
So look, to everyone listening, thank you for all your questions. I really appreciate it. Again, if you want to submit more in the future, just contact me. You can email me direct, Lawrence@highintensitybusiness.com, or you can go to highintensitybusiness.com/contact and just fill out the form there, and I will add you to the email list and make sure that you receive the polls that we do in the future. And if we didn't get to your question, just keep in mind that it might be answered in previous content. So if you see the show notes for this episode 446, we'll have the links to all the Imagine Strength content, which should all be timestamped. So you can pretty much find what you're looking for. I feel like across all the stuff we've done so far, we've got a pretty comprehensive overview of Imagine Strength at this point. And obviously, Jeff and I will be doing a part 2 in the next couple of weeks or months to address even more of your questions. Jeff, where are we sending people? ImagineStrength.com? Go ahead.
ImagineStrength.com.
You have another
website. And you can also get a hold of me at Jeff@ImagineStrength.com. So
perfect. Yep. Anything else?
And then one other thing I want people to understand, and I appreciate all the goodwill. I've gotten a lot of, the HIIT community is a very good community, and they're very much driven by
some of them.
They help, and we've got a lot of support. People are going, man, I'm really happy that you're doing this, because now they're getting to see some new equipment based right on their own business. So I really
there's a lot of excitement.
Everybody out there and their excitement helping us through this.
Yeah, I love all the a lot of the positive comments on YouTube are very Jeff generating a lot of that excitement. Jeff, thank you so much. And again, for everyone listening, you're very welcome. To get the show notes for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com, search for episode 446. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.